Hold on. There we go. Good evening. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a film very little people know about. And our host, one of my hosts that's on our show, Zach, is going to talk about it. He actually introduced me to this film called Criminally Insane. And so he'll be telling us he'll be talking more about the film than the other two. We've all seen the film, but I want to give him the opportunity to talk about this film. This is the first film to talk about. So, Zach, whenever you're ready, let's get going.
Hello, so this is Zach, and Criminally Insane is a 1975 slasher film directed by Nick Millard, also going under the name Nick Phillips in this film, which happens to be his middle name, actually. The plot of Criminally Insane concerns Ethel Janowski, played by late actress Priscilla Alden. For those of you who have ever seen the Hugh Grant film 9 Months, Priscilla Alden plays the old lady towards the end, like, "Get out of here, you asshole!" That lady. Anyway, so the film focuses on Ethel Janowski, an overly obese woman who suffers from paranoid manifestations, violence, extreme outbursts, and she's got a huge appetite. She's constantly eating like the biggest plates of things that you can imagine, like 6 eggs, a pound of bacon, and 12 pieces of toast, right? Well, anyway, her doctors release her from the hospital, much to their disdain. They feel that she should still be there, but they can't keep her there. So they put her under the watchful eye of her grandmother, who suggests she go on a diet. When grandma locks all the food away, Ethel has no choice but to stab grandma through the chest with the butcher knife and hide the body up in the bedroom. And if anybody tries to keep her from eating or vice versa, she kills them too. And then problems arise when Ethel's sister Rosalie shows up with her pimp boyfriend John, and a stink starts to emanate from grandma's room. So Ethel has to keep the bodies a secret before anybody else finds them. Also, we have a cop snooping around, played by George Buck Flower, the bum from Back to the Future. And yeah.
It's a very interesting cast, isn't it?
Yeah.
And people don't know is actually this film came out before Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Well, it came out after, but it was already been made before Chainsaw was even conceived.
Yeah, Nick Millard made it in 1973, but he didn't release it until 75 because he wanted it to be a double feature with his second horror film, Satan's Black Wedding. His idea was, hey, if we sell them both at the same time, we get more money from it.
Well, there's some there's a couple of Easter eggs in this movie. Yeah, one of them is kind of a precursor to a film done by Stephen King years later called Misery. Mm-hmm. And this woman reminds me of an alternate timeline of Kathy Bates' character. What was her name? I'm trying to remember. Annie Wilkes. That's who she reminds me of. An alternate reality of Annie Wilkes,
Yeah.
And then the other part was there were some scenes in there that reminded me of Psycho. She's coming at somebody with a knife, and it's like Psycho time,
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's where Nick got the idea from. Apparently, on the commentary for Criminally Insane, featuring 42nd Street Pete, Pete suggested that this film was the first female slasher movie.
And it might just have been. I mean, I don't know, though. Psycho was actually, I think...
Well, I mean, female slasher movie. I mean,
female killer. Okay, yeah. That's very much possible, yeah.
And, yeah, there's a variety of interesting aspects for behind-the-scenes stuff. Like, for instance, whenever a knife hits somebody or one of the meat cleavers hits somebody, it was actually a cardboard prop made by an art student.
Well, this is I guess, if it was released today, this would be considered an indie film,
Well, I mean, it is. This was Nick's actually. This was most of Nick's films are independent. This happens to be his highest budgeted film. He spent $35,000 on this one.
Well, I mean, now I don't do a lot of remakes because I don't want to be I don't want to be the remake director like you have what's his name who did Star Trek remake. What's his name? J.J. Abrams.
Abrams.
I refuse to be a remake director, but if I could remake this though, which I wouldn't do it, but if I did, I mean, it would be an interesting challenge. You know what I mean? It really would.
It's already been remade once.
Oh, with the sequel?
No, not the sequel. A legitimate remake that just came out last year.
Oh, I didn't know about that kind of remake. I'll have to. Is it as good as this one?
I've only seen bits and pieces, but according to some of the people who have reviewed it, they thought it was just as good as the original. Some other interesting aspects of this film. Priscilla Alden, in fact, was not a heavy eater in real life. She's a rather dainty eater, and she actually found it difficult to film this movie, constantly eating everything that her character was supposed to. And Nick Millard, he patterns himself after Orson Welles and all these famous French directors. He would sometimes film 10 to 15 takes of Priscilla walking up the stairs, and she's like, "Nick, I can't do it anymore. You make me walk up those stairs one more time, I'm gonna kill you."
Oh, man. Wait, Ronnie, I'm sorry, we didn't get to. Before when we introduced the show, I forgot. I want to introduce our other host that we have is Ronnie, the Wolfman Taylor.
Hello, everybody.
And I'm Joshua. I didn't get to say it at the beginning. I'm sorry about that. Now, Ronnie, you got to see his film too. What'd you think about it?
It was weird. That woman was a nutcase.
She seemed a little normal at first when she was starting.
Like, oh my gosh, she killed her poor grandmother. Then she kills that grocery delivery boy, and then that other guy is like, oh my gosh, what a weird
doctor woman. Yeah, she bashes him in the head with a candlestick. Well, that wasn't a fake candlestick, by the way. It was real candlestick, but they sped the footage up to make it look like she was smacking him with it. Speaking of the death scenes, a lot of the criticisms that come up pertaining to this movie is the blood, which is that bright red color, and many people have criticized Nick, saying, "Oh, you just went to the Sherwin and Williams and bought a bunch of red paint." And Nick's like, "No, that was the actual blood. It was made by the 3M company, and it looked like that. If you ever watched Dirty Harry, that's what the blood looked like in those days. It was fake, and now we have better blood, but that's what it looked like."
Yeah, it did look fake, but I mean, for the time period of what they did it in, it worked, but it was still weird.
Yeah, I think they still make that kind of blood. I had some of that in a Halloween kit that I bought. Other interesting aspects about this film is 42nd Street Pete also mentioned that food almost becomes like a drug in this film because he was hearkening back to some of Nick's drug-related films. Like whenever Priscilla, or Ethel in this case, kills somebody, she is seen eating something afterwards. So it's almost like a drug in this case.
Well, she should have never locked the food, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they would, but then if they would have never locked the food, there wouldn't have been a horror movie. You know what I mean? She ate herself to death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, it was weird. I couldn't get it. I was trying to like it, but it was just too weird.
Another interesting aspect is that the actress who played Rosalie, Ethel's sister in the film, her real name is Michael Flood.
Wow.
That's another misconception. A lot of people think Michael Flood is the boyfriend, John, but in reality it's Rosalie.
Oh wow.
Wait, that's her real name?
Her real name is Michael Flood. Yeah. It's kind of like how with John Wayne, his real name was Marion.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, John Wayne's real name was Marion.
Really a dude?
Yeah. No. Rosalie's a woman.
The girl's name was actually Marion.
Oh. I'm sorry.
The actress's name was Michael.
Yeah, Rosalie, the actress who plays Rosalie, her name's Michael. It's kind of like how with John Wayne, his real name was Marion,
I like the part where she's fighting the guy that's delivering the food and grabs the bottle and bashes him in the back of the head and then kills him.
That poor kid.
Yeah, he was a San Francisco native.
I like it. She basically says, "Don't fuck with my food."
Yeah. Well, Caruso says I got to get the $80 first. I don't have $80. I only got $4.50.
And then she stabs him to death afterwards. It's like, damn.
Yeah.
I was so expecting her to go after that cop. I was so expecting her to kill the cop.
Yeah, George Buckflower, like I said, he was the bum from Back to the Future, if you remember. That bum that we see towards the end of the movie, that was him, George Buckflower. And let me think. There's some other things. I have to mention that at least 5 other movies utilized footage from this film. Because you see, Nick Millard, in order to save money, will oftentimes reuse footage from his other films. So, Criminally Insane, footage from this movie shows up in Death Nurse 2, Dr. Bloodbath, and Cemetery Sisters.
Oh, wow.
And, of course, it also shows up in the movie's own sequel, Criminally Insane 2. Speaking of Criminally Insane 2, that was made 15 years after the first one. And that was shot in Nick's actual home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but he was friends with Priscilla Alden, and they made actually several films together. Like a lot of people say that Nick's films are bad, but if there's anything you can take from Nick's films, they're memorable. You aren't going to forget this movie.
Oh, heck no. Every time I think of food or see some, it's gonna make me, oh my gosh, that one was weird.
It's the same with the second movie. The second movie utilizes mainly footage from the first film, and at certain points, it's rather slow. It's shot on videotape. But the death scenes in that film are kind of memorable. When she hangs the orderly. I don't think you saw the sequel, Ronnie, but you saw it, Josh.
No.
So she hangs the orderly. She stabs that one mustachioed dude like several times, and then speaking of Nick Millard, he's in Criminally Insane too. Did you know that, Josh?
Who was Nick? Oh, the director?
The director, yeah. He's the dude at the end who gets stabbed in the back. Remember? Ethel, put that knife down now! Put that knife down!
I'll tell you, this movie is I don't know. It was just completely insane. You know what I mean?
It was weird. It was weird. That's all I gotta say. Weird.
Mm-hmm.
She got in front of her food. I'm surprised she didn't eat the people in the movie. You know what I mean?
Wait. Okay, spoilers. Before we go any further, spoilers. She does. At the very end.
Yeah, I just had to throw that. I'm sorry. It was kind of.
It's like, yeah, I didn't get that ending. It's like, okay, yeah.
Well, I mean, if in the commentary, Nick states that as the film goes on, she's losing it more and more. She was fine at the beginning, but as the film goes on, she goes complete. She's losing it more and more. I mean, if you watch it, again, before her dream sequence, she's lying in bed next to the corpse of the pimp boyfriend. What do you think she was doing in that sequence?
Yeah,
the whole movie was very, very
strange.
Like, she starts talking to the corpses. She says things like, "I'm gonna keep y'all in here like before. Sometimes I could hear you. I know what you were doing with John, Rosalie." Yeah, she was losing it. So at the very end of the movie, because she couldn't get rid of the bodies, she tried to bury them, couldn't do it because the ground was too rocky. She tried to throw them over a cliff into the ocean, but people kept showing up. So her, in her demented sense of thought, was like, you know what? The only way I'm going to get rid of these bodies is to eat them.
Mm-hmm.
And she does eat them. Speaking of those dead bodies, the decaying flesh effect was done using an avocado mask.
Oh, wow.
But it worked. I mean, that's one way of showing how to make a good low budget film. Oh, we can't get liquid latex. Oh, let's use an avocado mask.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I didn't Yeah, the ending was, well, spoiler alert. Let's let a spoiler alert. Was when the guy goes in there and finds her eating an arm.
Yeah.
Like, ah!
It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. He walks.
That's why you never keep a fat person from their food.
Yeah, he walks in there. He's like, my God, and then she's like gulping down an arm. Whose arm exactly it was, I don't know, but it might have been the grocery boy. It did kind of look like his arm, but it definitely wasn't her doctor.
Well, guys, we're gonna go ahead and rate this film for this episode. First of all, Ronnie, what do you give this film?
Oh, gee, I don't know.
1 out of 10.
I'll give it a 7.
A 7?
Yeah,
A 7 out of 10. All right. I guess I'll go and give my rating. I give it a 6 out of 10. It was a good movie, but it had some. No, I take that back. I give it a 7 out of 10 because it had some shocking moments in it. Like I said, I had a good time watching it. It was a little slow in some parts, but it was not a bad movie. In fact,
I get more of a laugh out of it than I did anything else. It was
that's what a lot of people agree with. Like they say this film is so bad it's funny, but in my opinion, I don't find it funny. Actually, I just find it entertaining. I give it a 9. There are some little issues now and again, like Nick's editing is kind of choppy at some points, like 5 shots for just a person walking down like the hallway or something. But other than that, I would give it a 9. And a heads up to anybody, there is some of the characters on this film are supposed to be unlikable, and sometimes they'll say something offensive or messed up. So just as a heads up, if anybody...
Actually, I'm going to be a little kinder. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because I forgot the ending was very crazy. You know what I mean? And what a way to end it. You know what I mean?
It also, I have to say that there's some rather hilarious lines in this film. If you remember when Rosalie brings in that drunk dude, played by actor Charles Egan, he sees Ethel for the first time. He's like, "Who's that? The madam?"
Well, the script was definitely out there. I mean, but now we're very kind. Now, if this had been reviewed by Siskel and Ebert, they would have been torn apart.
Nah, I don't know. I mean, maybe they did review it because they've been around since the 70s.
Well, I don't know if this one was ever reviewed by them or not. I'd have to look it up, but
I don't think it was.
I don't think Siskel and Ebert did indie films. I think they did like the more higher up films.
Higher up films, yeah. Well, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it into this episode, and we'll be back next time with another awesome film to talk about. Y'all have a wonderful day.